Welcome to Lighten Up, a show about bringing more love, light, and joy into your life, and archived on the Lighten Up program page. Please join us in the chat room by clicking on the chat room icon located on the left-hand side of our menu bar. Now the host of Lighten Up, Isabel Merians.
Welcome to Lighten Up with Isabel, your good news show. I want to welcome my viewers and say that I am delighted that you're joining us today, and I have good news as always to share. First, I'd like to introduce our guest today, John King, who has a company called My Personal Geek, and he has combined a way of using his desire to help people with earning a living. And John, would you like to address that a little bit? Well, maybe I'll give some other good news first, beside you as good news.
Absolutely.
Okay. First of all, I would like to say that the election is over. The day after the election, a group of Twitter users started a hashtag called Thank Obama in 4 words. And I recorded some of them because I thought they were quite lovely. I will share those with you. The first one is from one of the people, I actually felt safe. Another one was, thank you for caring. Another one, thank you for this. Another, you believed in us. You made me laugh. And one viewer simply said, class, dignity, strength, solutions, which I thought was quite extraordinary. Another, you made us feel better, and for fighting for equality, for respecting diversity. Thank you for promoting love. You gave us hope. And I thought those were all lovely messages. And of course, on a more personal level, I want to remind everybody about the gratitude journals that I hope you're keeping, such as, I woke up this morning. I can view this program. I live in a great country where we have the right to vote, and all of the other things that affect us on a personal level. We need to always be mindful and grateful. Now, when I first met John, I thought to myself, here's a man who has a tremendously strong ego. Anyone who can call himself my personal geek has got to be a strong person. How did you choose that title, John, for your business?
Well, it's very interesting. I went through an awful lot of names and trying to find the right one. And I kept trying to think about, well, what is it that I do? And how do I want people to understand my business?
Right.
And I wanted it to be a very personal service. There are a lot of companies out there that service corporations and service small businesses. And my business, I wanted to be about helping individuals, helping people in their homes. And I realized that it wasn't just computers, that I really help people with a lot of different technology. And so I thought that Geek was much more popular. And of course, I went through, should it be nerd, should it be geek, and all that kind of thing. But finally, I found that name sort of, or that phrase, and I said, well, somebody's got to have this. And I checked it out, and nobody did.
Nobody was using it.
So it was very, very fortunate.
Oh, that's great. That's great. Well, what other types of things do you help people with beside computers?
I have actually helped somebody pair their hearing aids.
That's wonderful.
Absolutely. I mean, it was something I hadn't done before, but it was something that was like pairing any other digital device. I pair mobile cell phones.
Oh, really? Wow. That's totally cool. Well, you're a man that was ahead of his time, and I think no wonder your business is flourishing. And tell me a little bit about, just briefly, how you determined to go into this business, how you made the decision. I know that you do a tremendous amount of pro bono work, a tremendous amount of good work helping other people, and which is one of the things I admire so much. And how were you able to think through that combination?
It was a little bit of a process. It started out, I worked for 21 years for J.P. Morgan Chase in technology. And at that one point in time, all of a sudden, the jobs that were there were going to India. Many of them went to India.
I know, I'm aware of that, right.
And like many people, I found that my job had disappeared. And I found myself in outplacement services, along with my employees. After being there for about 4 months, trying to get a job, neither myself nor any of my employees had even gotten any kind of interviews with headhunters. And so I said, the handwriting's on the wall. This is not something coming back. And I need to reinvent myself in some way. And I actually did several things before I found this job. The first thing was I said, well, let me open my own business. And I looked at various opportunities, and I didn't want a franchise because I didn't want to have to pay somebody on a monthly basis a portion of my profits. I found something called a business opportunity, which cost me a little bit more, but it came with the training. It came with the discounts on purchasing supplies. It came with many of the things that a franchise has. And I opened a small sign manufacturing business in Hackensack, New Jersey.
Oh, wow.
And I ran that for about 5 years. Mm-hmm. But what happened was I never made a profit with it. I was always putting money in. My sales kept going up, but it was very much the carrot chasing the stick because my expenses climbed right along with my sales. And so unfortunately, I loved what I was doing, but I had to make a decision to get out. Mm. And the first thing that happened was after I'd been out for a short period of time, a friend called me and said, I have a small advertising agency and you've got design skills and production skills. Would you be interested in being my production manager? Mm. And so I did that for about 2 years, and then the bottom fell out of print advertising. Everything went pretty much digital.
Right.
And so again, I found myself out there saying, I guess I need to reinvent myself.
So you're a man of many reinventions.
I think, it's important in life to be able to do that.
Absolutely.
I said, I can't define myself by what I've done.
Absolutely.
And I have to take off the filters that say, I have to do something in this narrow range. Mm-hmm. Because
that's when you can really grow.
Absolutely.
When a person can really grow.
Most of us can do many other things than what we think we can do, mm-hmm. Because we tend to view it in terms of what we've always done.
Right, right.
So what happened was, long and short of it was, that I had been doing help with people and their computers as an item in our church's service auction.
Oh, really?
And so I did that for a couple of years, and people started to contact me and say, can I have you come back again? Mm-hmm. And they would cut another check to the church. And I actually, one of the reasons I was doing this work was because I had always loved technology, and it gave me an opportunity to work with people, to teach, mm-hmm. and to really feel that I was helping people. I could see it while I was there.
Right.
And so I said, this is a viable business model, because if people want to hire me back,
mm-hmm. Absolutely,
this is something I could do.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, it's interesting that you got into it basically by trying to help other people and making contributions to your church. So that says right away you're a pretty good guy.
Try to be.
I think that's wonderful. Well, are you still doing any work with, for your church of a different nature?
Absolutely. As a matter of fact, I am the co-chair of the Bergen County, New Jersey Unitarian Universalist Outreach Auction. Mm-hmm. And once a year, and the auction happens to be tomorrow night.
Oh, really? Wow.
But once a year, we hold this auction. Last year, we raised $54,000 in one night for 6 local charities.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. Because I know if you have a good heart and your intent is toward helping people, there are always ways to go about that. They can be very diverse. And I know that you also are an expert. Is it Taekwondo?
Taekwondo. Yes, I teach Taekwondo in Cresskill, New Jersey. Uh-huh. I'm a 5th degree master.
Wow.
And I actually didn't start that until I was in my 50s.
That's great. I think the important thing is always growing and learning and doing new things. That's what keeps us vibrant and keeps
Absolutely.
us, aging consciously, as they say.
When we started talking, I was thinking about how does that fit with the other things I do. And the one common thread there is that it's about teaching.
Yes, and you seem to really love that, and I'm sure you're very good at it. Well, let me ask this. I know that I'm trying to remember how we met. I think we were introduced by Dr. Sharon Bernstein.
Absolutely. I'm sure that was, yeah, I think it was.
And her foundation, the Defining Moments Foundation, I know that you've done a great deal of work with them.
And I continue to work with them.
Right.
Their mission and the work that they're doing is really important.
I think so.
They're really
Absolutely.
helping a lot of families and kids. And so that anything I can do to further that.
Well, I know you were teaching Taekwondo to the children during this, wasn't there a summer program?
Right, they had a summer program, and I came and spent an afternoon, couple of hours, teaching the kids Taekwondo and teaching them about the values that are taught in Taekwondo, because there are some excellent values.
Yes.
And kids learn self-confidence, they learn self-discipline, they learn respect, not only respect for their elders, but also for their peers.
Right, right. And I understand, if I understand correctly, that it's not used aggressively.
Absolutely not. Matter of fact, Taekwondo, among all the martial arts, is the well. Actually, I think judo now is considered a sport too. But it's a sport. It's not about killing your enemy.
Of course.
It is. You can use Taekwondo like any martial art to defend yourself.
Right.
But what we teach the kids is, number one, you don't use this outside of class. Only in an emergency. You don't.
Right.
This is not something you do with your friends or somebody you don't like.
Right.
And number two, that it's not about hurting somebody. It's about getting away. So it's about giving yourself the opportunity to get away and be safe.
Yeah, get out of a bad situation.
That's right.
And do you find that resonates with them, or there's some kids who are more aggressive who want to use it aggressively?
There are some, not too many, not if they started early. And the ones who really are not happy with that approach will find some other, they won't stay in Taekwondo. They'll find some other avenue.
Well, I've heard that in karate it's the same thing, that they teach respect, for your peers, not only, as you say, not only elder people, but the peers, and they're taught not to use it offensively.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
One of the things I've noticed, and I've met people in various martial arts and people at various levels, is that the people who really move up and get skilled in the martial arts are people who are kind, people who are not angry, and they have all this power that's at their disposal, but it's not about anger, it's not about hurting, it's not about showing how powerful one is.
One is, yeah. Well, let me ask this, because it just occurs to me, since there's a great deal of grace involved, would you find that dancers would make very good Taekwondo students?
They do.
I would-
Absolutely, and there's a lot of crossover. And of course, both areas are about learning to work with your body.
Right, of course.
And some of it requires the same building of core strength, building muscles throughout the body, being able to balance. So there's a lot of carryover. And the same idea, there's a lot of self-discipline in dance.
Right. Oh, dance, absolutely. I mean, become a professional dancer, you have to work at it every day for hours and hours and hours and hours.
Well, it's something, actually, at one point I had an interest in. My ex-wife was a dancer. And when I was in college in Ohio, the Ohio Ballet was headquartered at our college.
Oh, how nice.
And I got introduced to them because I was the only person in the 60s at that point who had a velvet suit, and they needed somebody to do the flower presentations on the stage.
How cute is that? What color was it?
It was like a maroon, a dark.
Nice.
Yeah, it was brownish, more brown than maroon.
And how did you happen to have a velvet suit? Because that's interesting.
It was the 60s. And I think I saw it in some shop in Greenwich Village or someplace else and said, I got to have that.
Oh, that's funny. So that's how you met these people.
That's how I met these people. And then I got interested. I would go watch my wife in class, and I got interested in dance. And so I started to take some of the courses that they had there at the beginner's level. And summer came along, and I did the summer intensive. But what I realized very quickly was, starting in my basically late teens, there was no way I was ever going to be a dancer.
A professional, right.
Not a professional. But it's the same. There's a lot of carryover in that. I think Taekwondo, for me, carries some of the things that I liked about dance.
Yes, the discipline, the movement,
Being able
strength.
to have skill with my body.
Mm-hmm. That's really interesting. Yeah, it just occurred to me that, you know, a dancer, you know, used to moving with a certain amount of grace and so forth would make a good taekwondo person.
Actually, when I was doing dance, one of the requirements they had there was that the football team all had to take dance.
Oh, really?
Because it greatly improved their coordination.
Yeah. Well, I once heard a program where they said that the strongest football player could not compete with a 2-year-old in terms of movement. And they showed the little 2-year-old, you know, tumbling and falling and jumping and hopping, and this big hulking guy trying to keep up with the 2-year-old toddler. It was pretty cute.
You know, there's so much, I think, that we're born with that we either unlearn or forget, and
Or
sometimes
don't-
have
or
to
don't.
relearn in our lives.
And don't really develop, you know. I mean, I think the human being is a remarkable compendium of so many talents and abilities, and you know, that most of them don't really get tapped into during a lifetime. So I'm always fascinated with people who do try to extend and find as many as possible. I think that's always an important thing. So you're still working with the Defining Moment Foundation.
I'm still doing work with the Defining Moment, and I do work with a couple of other small foundations in the area.
Oh, really? What are those? Would I know them?
There's Giants of Generosity is one of them.
Mm-hmm.
And what they do is they help people who fall through all the other safety nets.
So, in what way?
So that when the Avalon fire took place down in Edgewater, New Jersey, a couple of years ago, there were people that night who needed a place to stay. And a lot of other agencies that come in and help either weren't there yet or take time to mobilize.
I see.
And Giants of Generosity went in and immediately were finding places for people
Oh, that's lovely.
on the phone, working that.
Right. I've actually heard of them, and I'm trying to remember the name of the woman who was the founder.
I know it, and it's just slipping my mind for the moment.
But I had heard of them briefly. I don't know much about them. But I understand that the Defining Moment Foundation is constantly adding new programs. When they first started, they only had a few, and now I understand they have many programs.
It's continually growing, and they just got a grant. I'm not sure when the work on it's going to start, but they got a grant to do work with ageism, which I think is such an important thing in our society today.
Mm-hmm. Well, I knew that they were doing so many new programs. I know that there was a program for NFL players who had concussions.
Absolutely.
And it started out with keeping young kids off drugs was the initial. Wasn't that the beginning?
That was the beginning. The Defining Moment works with the Stigma-Free campaign, which is going on currently in many, many towns.
Right.
And with the Municipal Alliance in the town that they're in, which brings businesses in. Right now, they're working with drug and alcohol issues.
Right. Anti-bullying, I
Anti-bullying
understand, was
is
another
huge.
one. Is another big one. Well, what are you specifically doing with them now, John, if you don't mind my asking? I know that you're very involved.
Well, it started out with my just doing work with some of the technology, but in many ways I'll step in and lend a hand with administrative work, with getting forms filled out for things. So it's kind of like, and this happens with many of my clients, it's really whatever they need that I have a skill set in.
I see. Well, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
That's really quite wonderful. Well, the taekwondo and the technology are two biggies. I know that. Now, tell me a little bit about the church work. That's not something we've really discussed. It's the Universalist Church?
It's the Unitarian Universalist Church. And they are, they're based out of, or they came from Christian roots. And it was the Universalists and the Unitarians were two separate denominations that merged.
Really? And are they no longer separate entities?
They're no longer separate entities.
Really?
And the Universalists believed in universal salvation and split with some of the other Christian traditions over that. And they didn't believe in original sin. And the Unitarians were a lot more about the unity of all creatures and religions. And matter of fact, Unitarian services are interesting because everyone is very different. They may be bringing in teachings from Buddhism. They may be bringing in teachings from Christianity or from Sufism. And it's really, to me, I mean, when I think about what is it and why did I join that church, it's very much because it really provides a structure for me to grow spiritually. And it, instead of answering my questions in many ways, it challenges me with more questions.
Right. Well, I think the concept of unity among all religions is paramount at this time, particularly.
It's not just all religions; it's among all people. It's with our animal cousins. It's really about the interconnectedness of all life.
All life. Well, that's a beautiful concept, and certainly something I think we all need to be aware of.
It's interconnectedness and interdependence.
Absolutely. Well, it's like they say, whatever we do to the earth affects everyone.
It sure does.
In a very, very profound way. So in combining those two churches, did they simply choose the best of the teachings of each, or how is it presented?
There was a lot of overlap and parallel.
I see.
And I don't know a lot about when they were combined because it was a long time ago. But I do know that there was controversy at the time, that they had things they had to work out, but they really came together agreeing on a unified platform. And to belong to the church, there's not really a doctrine, but there is a set of principles that one has to agree to. And although I should know those principles, be able to talk to them all, the one that sticks with me the most, of course, is the interdependence of all living things.
Well, I think that's a beautiful concept. I think that's beautiful. Now, do they believe in a God?
Well, it depends on the person,
Yeah.
because Unitarian Universalism doesn't say to you, you need to believe in God.
I see.
You do need to believe that there is something larger than yourself. One of the things that everybody agrees to is that there is something larger than myself. And for some people, that's the force of nature. We have actually atheist Unitarians,
Oh, really?
pagan Unitarians, Christian Unitarians, and Jewish Unitarians, and of course a whole flavor of other religions.
That's wonderful. That's really quite extraordinary.
And some people say, well, how can you have an atheist who belongs to a religion? Well, it's because many atheists are spiritual. They may not believe in an organized religion, or they may not believe in God the way that other people believe in God. But they do have this tremendously strong feeling of spirituality and connection.
So interesting. Well, on the drive up here, you and I were discussing politics, and the conclusion we came to is that you can't really discuss politics literally, and it's sort of the same thing with religion, because a belief system, whether it's political or religious or whatever, is based on emotion rather than fact.
It's based on emotion, and of course, one of the things that I read recently, which I think is a real truism, is that whatever our belief system is, we tend to believe things that are congruent with our beliefs, and we tend to discount the facts that we get that are not congruent with our beliefs.
Yes, I think that's absolutely true.
So you can't really have an argument with somebody over beliefs. I'm not going to convince you to believe like me. You're not going to probably convince me to believe like you. I think what people need to do is find common ground.
Absolutely. I think that's very well stated. And certainly, people get very emotional about these issues, and it really is non-productive.
It's non-productive for themselves,
Absolutely.
and it's non-productive for society.
Absolutely. I completely agree with you on that. Now, let me ask this, John. How do people find out about your service? How do they find out about My Personal Geek?
In the beginning, it was very much personal referrals. People would tell a friend.
Right.
Or people would call me and say, I have a friend who needs help. And I'd say, well, give them a call and ask them if it's okay for me to call them.
Right, right.
And but what happened was, after a while, my website started to get found.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, I'm getting more new business now through the internet than I am through personal referral, although I still get a lot of personal referrals.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I think I also do, some of it comes through some of the other work I do. I find that when I meet people and I tell them what I do,
they become interested.
They become interested, or I'll be at a dinner party and someone will say, oh, God, I really need you.
How nice is that?
It's a wonderful feeling.
It's
it really
nice
is.
feeling because, very often, it's not like you want to call your exterminator and say, I really need you.
Absolutely, yeah. No, I don't want to need my exterminator.
No, but I'm just saying, I need my dentist,
Yeah.
So it's nice to be welcomed immediately.
Absolutely.
And feel needed. I think that's really very gratifying. Now, tell me this, how much time do you usually allocate to, or does it just depend on each person?
To some degree, it depends on each person, but when I schedule appointments, if it's training, I schedule an hour. I want to be able to spend enough time so that they're going to be able to have skill with something, be able to remember what I taught. At the same time, going much more than an hour, people sometimes go into overload, and then they don't remember anything, or they forget a lot of it. It makes it more difficult for them.
Well, do you find that most people, while you're teaching them, do they usually take notes?
Well, some people take notes, some people don't. And this is interesting. The people who are really uncomfortable with the technology want to write everything down. But by writing everything down, when you're really writing, you can't be thinking about it at the same time, and
absorbing what you're saying.
So they often miss the concepts, and what they're left with is just what they've written down, a procedure.
Right.
And so what I try to do when I know that somebody needs to write it down is to then go back and say, while I'm still here, follow your notes. And
let me see you
do it. Right.
Let me see, because I think that's always a key.
And, you have people who are visual learners, people who are auditory learners, people who are tactile learners, and you really have to use several modalities for some people to get it, to be able to understand it, to connect.
Well, it's so interesting because the people who started as very young children, like my granddaughters, for instance, started at the age of 3 or 4, sitting on my husband's lap, and
they're comfortable with it.
They can
they
whiz,
get it.
they whiz, and people like me who are not very technologically oriented definitely are appreciative of people with your skill sets.
What I try to do is encourage people to not be afraid to try things. So many of us who grew up without computers or came to computers late in life are afraid that if they touch something, they're going to break the machine.
Absolutely. Absolutely
true.
true. And
you really can't. Yes, you could delete something that you really care about, but most things you delete are in the trash can and can be retrieved. So I really encourage people to, poke around in the program, try things, see what it does.
Right.
If you get stuck on something, give me a call.
Right. Well, it's sort of interesting, too, that many people who teach compute, what you're doing, fly around the computer so quickly that the person trying, I don't know if they're showing off or not, but they go so quickly that the person doesn't have time to really absorb.
That's because they're focused on getting the problem fixed. They're not always focused on the person in front of them and that person's unique needs.
Right.
One of the organizations I belong to is the Alliance for Senior Services. And it's a group of businesses that have come together to serve the senior community. And in the senior community in particular, the needs in technology are really underserved because the average computer store just wants to fix your problem. And they don't want to spend the time. One of the things I do is, rather than charge by the job for most things, I charge by my time, so that I can give the customer what the customer wants and the customer needs, and don't have to worry about, this is taking too long for this job. Because if I'm working with somebody who is quite elderly,
it'll take them longer.
It'll take them longer. The short-term memory is not going to be as good.
Right.
They may have other challenges. They may have declining eyesight. They may have a tremor in the hands, and so when they try to work the mouse, they have trouble putting it where they
You
need to
should
put
go.
it.
Right, right. Well, I am really very grateful for you for being such a wonderful guest. It's been wonderful having you.
It's been wonderful being here.
And I think the service that you offer is fabulous. Or should I
Thank
say
you very much.
services? Because you obviously help with many things. And I want to thank our viewers for joining us today. It's been really a lovely time with you. And remember to lighten up and try to find the joy in each day. Bye-bye.
Until next time, remember to live a more joyous life. Lighten up.
It's not just radio, it's Rockland World Radio. RocklandWorldRadio.com